We got some more bonus content here with Locked On Colts. And, we're going to take a step back away from this Colts team for a day here. Here on this weekend edition of Locked On Colts, me and my buddy Jon Hagler are going to go through the 2023 quarterback class, some potential guys that could be in this draft class, and some top dogs that are catching our eye already. All that and much more on today's episode of Locked On Colts. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Colts fans? And I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. You guys are probably going to be catching this here on Saturday, so 2 days after Thanksgiving. But we're recording this on Friday, so we just kind of got through all of our Thanksgiving stuff. I just got off a 9-hour shift, and we're recording this here early in the morning. So if I look a little disheveled and tired, that's probably why, guys. But thank you guys for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. This is Zach Hicks, of course, a Locked On Colts co-host, but I'm joined again by Jon Hagler. We had some good comments last time. This is going to be your fourth time on the show now. Third time where it's just you and me on here, and we're going to take a step away from the Colts for once. I'm not going to make you talk about a team that you're not always, you're not always watching or anything like that. We're going to go to your specialty. We're going to talk some draft. So if you guys are tuning in, we're gonna spend this first segment here. We're gonna talk about the two top guys in this class, and then the second segment we're gonna jump into some of the traitsy guys, the two big traitsy quarterbacks, and then we're gonna talk about some guys we like to kind of wrap up the show. But let's start with the top dogs, and I think we always get our early scouting going. Draft nerds like you and me, Hag, and last year when we were looking at that quarterback class, it's like, okay, look, this quarterback class is bad. And I know the next year's class always looks better, but we're looking at last year's class. It's like, look, C.J. Stroud from Ohio State, Bryce Young from Alabama, they would easily be the number one pick if they 100%. Went in last year's class. And I think now we're looking at it where those guys are still probably going to go top 5, top 10 in this class here. So let's start with Bryce Young. I think he's the kid that everyone's excited about. Heisman Trophy winner in 2021. Alabama quarterback, Alabama, they get all the athletes, they get all the top players. He's having a bit of a down year this year, but man, Bryce Young, there are some concerns, which we'll get to in a second, but just when you look at his film, he's so fun.
Oh yeah. No, I think that's the perfect word to describe him. I mean, anytime you consistently watch these quarterbacks as a whole, there's one or two that stand out just by the sheer amount of silly plays that they make. How they run around, how unconventional they are, and then just how talented he is and how calm under pressure he is. Like, there's not a more enjoyable quarterback to watch than Bryce Young. Yeah, people they're gonna knock size and things like that, but he has the arm, he has the mobility, he has athleticism, and when you look at today's NFL, he's everything that you want in a quarterback. Not only that, but he's a great leader, and he's just composed. Like, I don't know if there's a more composed quarterback in this draft class, because the kid's almost psychotic in clutch moments. When you look at him, he's grinning, when he's down, 6 points, or he's got to go 70 yards to go beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl as a sophomore. The kid's fun to watch, and he's super excited.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me in how I evaluate quarterbacks, and later in this offseason, guys, we're going to have Kent Swanson from Kansas City Sports Network. He's going to be doing quarterbacks for the Indy Draft Guide this year, so he'll be able to dive into kind of his process and what he looks for. But for me, I missed on a lot of guys when I first started doing this stuff by kind of discounting how quarterbacks react to pressure. I want the guy I always go back to is Brad Kaya. Brad Kaya, when I was younger, man, I was like, Brad Kaya, like, he can make all the throws. It's like, yes, he gets a little skittish under pressure, but look at him. He can make all the throws. But you can't be skittish under pressure. You have to be someone, especially in today's NFL, you're always under pressure. You're under pressure every single snap. How you react to that pressure is so important. And Bryce Young, to me, has that Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson type thing where he thrives in chaos. Like, he welcomes chaos. Maybe sometimes he invites it a little too much, but he loves that chaos. He loves being, dead to right in the pocket, because that's when he makes makes those money throws, makes those money plays. And we've seen it this year where, he doesn't have Jameson Williams. He doesn't have Devontae Smith. He doesn't have Jalen Waddle. And he's still making plays despite having a lesser talent. Still Alabama, but still having like a young team around him. He still has Alabama. He still is making a lot of plays. It's, again, the stats are a little bit down this year, but man, he is psychotic. He's fun. And like you said, I know it's hard to measure that clutch gene, and it's hard to say like, oh, this guy has clutch ability, but he is the quarterback in college football where if I need a touchdown to tie the game up, or I need a field goal and I have like under a minute left, that's the guy I want, because he is he's stone cold in the face of pressure.
Yeah, no, he's super fun, man. And I think him not having that talent around him, well, he keeps saying talent, he still has good players around him. Don't get it twisted. Not have that, first round receiver, as his go-to guy. I think it's been probably better for him as a prospect, right? Because the knock on some of these top guys, whether it was Tua when he came out, Justin Fields when he came out, Stroud and Bryce this year, is the fact that they're always throwing to the best player, right? And then when you get to cut on whether it's A&M or whether it's the Texas game, when he's sitting in the pocket and the cornerback blitz is coming and he evades pressure and then just throws a dot against that Texas defense and just takes your soul, that's what you want to see. And it's been fun watching Bryce have to do a little bit more this season than normal.
Yeah, and when we're talking concerns, he's not that surefire first overall pick, because this guy's going to be, 5'10", 180. Yeah. Like, he is tiny.
Yeah.
And he's not Kyler Murray where, he has this 4.2 speed to kind of back it up. Now, again, he's fast, he's quick, he's agile, but it's not Kyler Murray where you can't touch him in the backfield. Yeah. So that is a concern. And also, again, it's not like Kyler Murray where he doesn't have this extra cannon that's like the best arm in college football. It's a good arm, but
it's not the best arm. Yeah.
Right. So it is a little bit scary. You're not going to be betting on a super traitsy guy. But again, I think my comparison for him right now would kind of be like a Joe Burrow type, where
the games are very similar.
Yeah, very, very similar. Yep. And now if we're going to switch to the other top guy, this is the guy who's been breaking records left and right, huge passing numbers every year. And yes, he has been working in that Ohio State offense, which we know is a bit of a tough transition to the NFL. But CJ Stroud, I think, would be the surefire first overall pick 10 years ago.
It wouldn't even be a conversation.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a conversation. He's so prototypical with his build. He's a very good passer of the football. The weapons that he has around him are elite. The fact that you can lose a guy like JSN and then the next guy up is probably going to win a Biletnikoff is just silly. You combine that, a good quarterback with elite talent and the best play calling, arguably in college football, when you talk about getting guys open. There's times where Ohio State receivers are just running on thin air, because they can scheme those guys open. The CJ Stroud is he's a very fun quarterback to watch because like you said, he is prototypical. The arm, he has good velocity on his throws. He operates on all parts of the field. He's not afraid to take chances, has a good deep ball. There's not a lot of flaws in his game. But he's a clean quarterback and he's probably going to be the first quarterback off the board when it's all said and done. But, I like his game and I like watching his film.
Yeah, he feels very high floor. And I don't want to say low ceiling, but I don't think his ceiling is as high as the next two quarterbacks we're going to talk in the next segment, or even as high as Bryce Young, because today's NFL is so much about creativity at being quarterback. And CJ Stroud is the guy who thrives in the pocket. If things are kind of crashing around him, I'm not saying he panics or I'm not saying that he struggles, but he doesn't throw off platform as well as a Bryce Young. He doesn't make plays outside of structure as well as Bryce Young. And I think that kind of pocket passer is kind of a dying breed. Now, I still think he could be like a Matt Ryan or I know this comparison is going to scare everyone, but like a Jared Goff type guy. I mean, Jared Goff is not a horrible quarterback. Fine quarterback.
No, not at all.
But I really love his anticipation. I love his feel for the game back there. I think he's got a lot of good things going for him, but it is really interesting to see how teams are going to, react to a quarterback like him where, again, 10, 15 years ago, this is the guy. But now, you want the next Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes or Joe Burrow, those guys who can move around and thrive under pressure. Where does a guy like CJ Stroud kind of fall into that?
Yeah, and that's going to be the conversation to be had. It's do you want the sure thing? You know what I'm saying? Is he the guy that you're going to put into an offense that's one or two weapons away from being elite, and he could just be the point guard. And when I'm
Right.
talking about like basketball references, he's a layup mid range guy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like how you're talking about 10, 15 years ago, he's a typical point guard that's going to run the show very efficiently. He's not going to lose it for you. He's going to go out there and yeah, he may drop 31 games. But then, like you said, when you compare him to some of these other guys, Bryce Young is exciting. He's more like Allen Iverson type. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what is he going to do next? You know what I'm saying? Oh
Right.
my God, like I can't wait to see it. But CJ Stroud he's super clean. He's super fun. And when you talk about his weaknesses, there's not a ton of them, but he's not a perfect quarterback. Like you
Right.
said, under pressure, he can get a little. His footwork may get a little sloppy. As far as like when he throws the football, he gets a little. I won't say he falls apart, but when he does get that heat on him, the technique and the fluidness kind of will leave him a little bit, and it'll get him in trouble at times. But he's at the top for a reason, and he's been consistent, and he's been very good over the last 2 years at Ohio State.
Yeah, definitely. These are two guys where I feel pretty comfortable taking him
Mm-hmm.
with the first overall pick. Now, given there are some elite defensive talent in this draft, so I would understand teams taking a Will Anderson or a Jalen Carter
Yeah.
there. But these two quarterbacks, I think if you're a quarterback needy team like the Texans, they'll probably be up there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes a lot of sense to take one of these guys. But up next, we're going to talk about some quarterbacks that might be in the Colts range. They could be depending on where the Colts are drafting. But these are some major projects. But first, I want to tell you guys about my friends at Prize Picks. If you want to make some picks on game day, just do what I do and slink on in your Prize Picks app before game time. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than that stat projection, then you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport you watch. This includes NFL, NBA, MLB, and even disc golf. I mean, Hag, have you ever bet on disc golf? Have you ever?
No.
Have you ever?
I played disc golf, but I haven't.
There you go. You can go to Prize Picks and you can pick some disc golf. I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun to me. So entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Your withdrawals are safe and fast, and Prize Picks is now operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for instant deposit match up to $100. All right, Hag, let's talk about these two projects because I'm going to start with the guy who, we've seen Dane Brugler and stuff say that some teams have him as quarterback 1 in this class. And look, I get it. The traits are there. But I am so terrified of Kentucky quarterback Will Levis. I am.
Oh, yeah.
He scares me so much because just to say, kind of put it out there, he's going to be 24, I believe, on draft day. He has probably the best arm I've ever seen at the college level. I mean, it is effortless velocity. Effortless. I mean, it's very Josh Allen, where Josh Allen could throw it through a wall or whatever. Will Levis can do that too, but he does it effortlessly. Looks very Aaron Rodgers like when he throws it. The way it's just that sidearm, great hip rotation, pulls everything through it, super athletic, super fluid. That's pretty much all the positives.
Yeah.
It's just the upside. He does come from a pro style offense, so that is another good thing to look at. But what do you think of Will Levis, Hag, and does he scare you as much as he scares me?
Oh no, 100%. Like at this point in the season, this is coming from a guy that missed on Josh Allen, and I feel like now we're in that territory where for a while every strong arm, unconventional thrower was Patrick Mahomes. Now every big athletic quarterback with a rocket arm is going to get Josh Allen comps. And Josh Allen was a guy, early on when I started out, like I was not a fan of, but then I didn't really put it into, I didn't think that he would land in a perfect situation like he has with the offensive staff, with the offensive playmakers, and in a team that's ready to build around him. I'm terrified of Will Levis, especially about what I've seen this year. Last year I was excited about what would he do this year. But when you talk about a quarterback with all the tools who won't come off his first read, who looks like he has an issue processing, like how we talk about how CJ Stroud and Bryce Young can operate and it's effortless. Will Levis is the total opposite. If it's not there, that kid is, or young man, we'll say he's 24, is not gonna throw the football. And he holds onto the ball a little bit too long, and then he relies on athleticism, which isn't a bad thing, but it'll get you in trouble. We see how some of these young quarterbacks now, they're struggling, but you have to know your first, second, third read or your check down at all times. That's just something I haven't seen him really grow into or mature as a quarterback into, and that's very concerning because in the NFL, it's only going to get better. I know you're playing in the SEC, but it's only going to be more talent and more ability once you make that jump up.
Yeah, and to put in some perspective, it does his season this year reminds me a lot of Jordan Love's final season at Utah State, where everyone got so excited that junior season of Jordan Love, and then he came back for his senior year, and just like Will Levis, lost a lot of talent. I mean, Will Levis is lost most of his offensive line. He lost Wandell Robinson. He lost his offensive coordinator to the NFL. So you are seeing kind of some steps back because of that, but still, when you're watching that film, you can see the flaws and mistakes. And again, it kind of goes back to what I said about Bryce Young, where the biggest thing I look at is how these quarterbacks react to pressure. Do they know how to slide up? Do they know how to manipulate the pocket? Do they limit mistakes when they're under duress? And with Will Levis, I watched his Florida game on All 22 recently, and just so much happy feet, so much bailing from clean pockets, rolling, turning his back to the pocket to run out. And don't get me wrong, when he found his receiver, oh my gosh, the talent is insane. He is, it's so effortless how he throws the football, but I am terrified of a quarterback who is skittish under pressure. And like you said, can't get to that second, third, fourth read. Now, again, I do think with the right coaching, with the right situation, a lot of half field reads early on, then you eventually get him into a comfortable area. I'm not saying he could be Josh Allen, but the talent is there. But the other big Traitsy kid is, someone who's a little bit younger. Anthony Richardson from Florida, another SEC guy. I think he's only 21. He might only be 21 on draft day too. Very young quarterback. Very, very few starts. I think still run around the 10 starts mark in his first career now.
He's under 15 for sure, or 16 for sure.
And this is a guy where, the reincarnation of Cam Newton, where the accuracy is so sporadic and the footwork is bad and the progressions aren't there as a passer. But this is a 6'4", 6'5", 240-pound guy who run 4.4 and run past guys, run over guys. If you are willing to bet that you can improve his accuracy, he could be a top 5, top 10 quarterback in football. It's just, again, we don't know how much better a guy can get as a passer, because typically, if a guy's inaccurate in college, they're not going to be accurate in the pros. But honestly, again, it could be like the Cam Newton thing where it's look, if he's a big guy who can run like this, I don't need you to be a 70% passer.
Man, no, not at all. And now Anthony Richardson, he's the guy that, early in the season, I watched him last year, and I've kind of had some inside information on him for a couple of years now. A buddy of mine, he worked down in Florida. And before he was starting, he was like, man, we have a freshman. He was like, this kid is Cam Newton 2.0. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I would see clips, right? I'm like, this is silly. And then we kind of, heard the murmurs last year, and then he hopped into the role. We're coming into this year, we've seen great moments, right? We've seen great moments. We saw the Utah game. We've seen bad moments. You said happy feet at times. He may be relied too much on his athleticism. But I saw that kid in person a couple weeks ago, and I was ready to sell the house then. I haven't seen anything like that. And A&M has a very good defensive line, right? Everything else probably isn't up to par, but A&M had a very, very good defensive line, and he made them look like little boys. He is every bit of 6'4", 6'5", 250, and he is so fast, and his arm is freakishly strong. When he's throwing rockets through receivers' chest. They don't have a choice but to catch it. And then when you watch him in the pocket, I think that's where he's improved the most. Not necessarily the footwork, not necessarily the best pocket presence, but there were moments where it was collapsing. I saw him climb. I saw him demonstrate more patience and be willing to take a hit and deliver strikes. And that was so impressive to me because, like you said, that's probably one of the most important traits going forward in the NFL. And I think he has the room to grow. And I think he may, obviously Levis, but he may have the highest ceiling because, like I said, he is very, very young as far as in his playing career and his development. And if he gets with the right team, the right quarterback coach, and the right offensive staff, it's over. Because,
Yeah.
I think Anthony Richardson is coming if he lands with the right franchise.
Yeah, I think, and again, just to end this segment, I think you and I are going to be on the same page with this one. But if you had to take a shot on one of these guys, say with a top 15 pick, it's Richardson all the way, right?
100%. Yeah. He's too toolsy. Like, he's got it.
Yeah, I like Levis. Like, I'm not trying to put a lot down on Levis. I think there's something there, but again, an older quarterback prospect who really hasn't put together all the way in college. I'm scared of that. Yeah. But then you give me the 21-year-old kid who is, under 15 starts, under 10 starts, who is a freak athlete, freaky build. I'm a little more intrigued by that. But you guys can let us know in the comments which guy you like a little bit better there. I know that is a heated debate between draft nicks and stuff like that. A lot of guys like Levis more, a lot of guys like Richardson. So yeah, leave it in the comments there. And guys, we're going to talk about some, I don't want to call them sleepers, but just some other interesting guys here in our last segment on this show. But first, today's show is also sponsored by our friends at Simply Safe. Did you know that over the holidays, property crimes like burglaries and package thefts spike nationally? That's why our friends at Simply Safe Home Security are offering 50% off their award-winning security system so that more families can feel safe and secure this holiday season. Here's why I love it. Being able to control the system and seeing everything that's going on at our house with crystal clear resolution is awesome and gives me great peace of mind. Simply Safe was named the best home security system of 2022 by U.S. News and World Report, a third year in a row. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system that I recommend. Get 50% off of any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/URL today. This is their biggest discount of the year. So don't wait. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. There's no safe like Simply Safe. All right, so getting to this last segment here, I know there's a guy that you definitely want to talk about, but let's talk about the other big guy that we didn't really mention those first two. Unfortunately, he did tear his ACL recently, but another SEC quarterback who was the odds favorite to win the Heisman before this ACL injury, and that's Hendon Hooker from Tennessee. I wrote an article for Horseshoe Huddle. Sorry, I'm a little absent-minded right now after my shift and stuff, but I wrote an article for Horseshoe Huddle, the site that I work, about Hendon Hooker and why I like him. But again, he kind of scares me. A 25-year-old quarterback who has some poor footwork, some poor mechanics, and coming from that system is kind of scary. But I think there is an avenue for success with Hendon Hooker. I just, I don't know if I would take that shot in the first round.
Yeah, no, I think, especially with the ACL injury, being an older quarterback, you set that guy back a year, plus the development. When you look at a guy who could possibly get his first action in the NFL at 26, maybe 27, it's a little scary. I know quarterbacks tend to play a little bit longer, but like you said, not the cleanest quarterback, but has a great arm, has great size, good athleticism. But that's about where it checks out. Oh, and he's very efficient. By the way, he takes care of the football. I love how he takes care of the football and how he runs that offense. But that offense is the problem. Because when you talk about it gets guys open, you talk about those super, super wide splits, it's kind of tricky. And I would compare it, like you said, to like we talked about a couple weeks ago, that Baylor type deal. It's like, how do you feel about those quarterbacks and those receivers translate to the NFL? And is that something you're willing to do with an older quarterback who's hurt? And I think the injury definitely knocked him down. I think before there was definitely a conversation to be had. That on top of having a good Senior Bowl week would be very beneficial to him. But now he's not going to get either one of those. And, I just think his stock takes a big hit.
Yeah, I like Hendon Hooker. I think in the right situation, he could be like Jalen Hurts type guy where he uses the legs well. But again, the ACL injury kind of derails a lot. So we'll see what happens this offseason with him and see where his stock kind of goes. But I'm rooting for him. I hope he ends up working out in the NFL. But, man, it's going to be tough for him. It's going to be tough. But let's get to another guy with some injury concerns, a guy that I know that you're very high on. And I think, honestly, on film this year, we're probably talking about top 3 or 4 quarterback in this class. But it's just the past and the injury concerns are going to knock him down. But Michael Penix Jr., I think I'm saying that right, Penix or Penix?
Penix. I've heard Penix, from whatever, but it may just be where you're from, how you say it. But, so Michael Penix is what I say. But if you want to go Penix, go for it.
Yep. And then you guys, I know all of you guys are very familiar with this guy. He was the starting quarterback at Indiana, I think for like 4 years or something like that, like a long time starter
He was there for a
with
minute.
Indiana. Yeah, he was there for a minute. And he had some ups and downs. We're not going to deny that there were some downs. That 2021 season before his transfer was tough, playing through
It was rough.
injury. It was. Yep, it was. And then he got back with his old offensive coordinator here at Washington this year, and he has been phenomenal. Like, I think he's like, I want to say he's like sixth in Heisman odds right now, or sixth or seventh. He's one of those long shot guys that you could take a shot on, but man, he has been really good. He probably makes, outside of Stroud and Young, he makes the most NFL level throws in this entire quarterback class. But again, this is his first season in college where he's, knock on wood, where he's going to complete the year, injury free. He's had really bad shoulder injuries. I think he had the ACL injuries and stuff like that. So there are reasons to be scared. But on film, man, it looks good.
Yeah, no, people, it's going to be hard. You can't ignore the injury past. It's just it's going to be part of his story and part of his process. And it may put a ceiling or a cap on where he's able to be drafted, just from a scouting and evaluation standpoint. But man, I know some teams are drooling, like if he falls and they're able to grab him. Because just from, like you said, from an NFL standpoint, and we talk about it a lot, like, and people will probably ask, what are pro throws? Can you put balls in tight windows? Can you beat man coverage? Can you take calculated risk and be able to put touch and layer throws across the field under pressure? Those types of things. I don't know, except for, like you said, Stroud and Bryce, if there's a quarterback that does it consistently, and the fact that he doesn't take sacks. That's the most impressive thing about Michael Penix is the arm talent and his ability to look and throw like a pro. Those are very exciting for him as a prospect. He's, got a good build on him, 6'2", 6'3", or whatever, 200 and some pounds. But the durability is going to come up. But if, like we talked about a week or two ago, if you haven't had a chance to watch Michael Penix because he's at Washington, go watch, just type in his name on YouTube, Washington. And I think you'll see some throws that just kind of make you go, wait, why haven't I heard about this guy?
Right.
Right. So very, very good player, and, I'm excited to see him finish out this season and see what comes from it.
Yeah. Make sure you guys are watching that game against Oregon where, he basically, I'm not going to say single-handedly, but he was a huge part in knocking off the Oregon Ducks from potentially getting into the playoff. But now let's talk about the Oregon Ducks quarterback. Another transfer guy, a guy who came into college football with all the expectations in the world. He was supposed to save the Auburn football program. And the first, from his first day as a starter, I mean, again, it's hard to be thrown into the SEC as a true freshman start. I think he was a true freshman starting there.
Yeah, he was SEC Offensive Player of the Year his freshman year, or freshman of the year that year.
Yep. So he got thrown into the fire in the toughest conference, and it was a mixed bag. And it kind of was a mixed bag throughout his entire time at Auburn. Now, he did get better each year, but it still wasn't, it still wasn't where it needed to be. Transfers to Oregon, goes out to that Pac-12, and he's lighting up the college football world, rushing for multiple touchdowns a game, throwing it down the field. And yes, I know he took that step down in competition, but I really do think he's a guy like Penix Jr., where, yes, the misconception, the previous conceptions of his play is always going to be in the back of your mind. You're always going to think, oh my gosh, it's scared Bo Nix back there. But when you watch him on this film this year, he looks like a legit quarterback prospect. But
no doubt.
like you and I have talked about, it's hard to get that old Bo Nix out of your head.
Yeah, because Bo Nix from a tool standpoint is very, very good. When you look at the size, you look at the athleticism, you look at the arm strength, he checks all those boxes. I mean, that's why he's the number one dual-threat quarterback in the country coming out of high school. Bo Nix, he can do everything you want to do on a football field. That was never the issue, with Bo Nix. And, I think him being with the offensive system that he's comfortable with a team that actually believes in him, because after year 1 or 2 at Auburn, I think people started losing a little bit of faith in him. I'm glad that he was able to demonstrate that at Oregon. And I was having a conversation earlier. Yeah, I think he was average in the SEC, right? And he made that jump to the Pac-12, and he looks elite. And I think it's a little bit to do with the defensive talent, but maybe that boost of confidence and not getting beat up all the time, maybe that did make him a better quarterback because he's not constantly worried about, hey, am I going to make it out of this game? Like, so because he didn't always have the best weapons. He didn't always have the best offensive line at Auburn. And those are things that I'm excited to see him do is, one, get that confidence back and then play consistently, which was something I think he struggled with at Auburn. He has been very consistent at Oregon. He's been one of the most consistent and productive quarterbacks in the country this season. So I'm excited to see if he decides to come back or if he decides to take, like you said, those Senior Bowl invitations or whatever it may be and participate and go through this process and see what his ceiling may be, because he's a very intriguing prospect.
Yeah, I definitely want to see how he stacks up with these guys after, if he has a good Senior Bowl process and stuff like that. Because I've been really, really intrigued by everything I've seen on film this year, even though I still have, Auburn Bo
Nix. He can't
get
get it out.
He can't get it out.
The Nix, the Bo Nix experience is what my Auburn buddies went with, and some of it is very traumatizing, but there's a lot of good in there too.
Yeah,
there's a lot of good in there.
I know people on Colts Twitter be like, "Oh, Zach is sold on Bo Nix." I'm not sold. I'm not sold yet, but I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued. I'm peeking. Yeah. I'm looking over there. And then there are some other quarterbacks in this class that we definitely don't have time to talk about today. But Cameron Ward out of Washington State, I think, is a very interesting one. Clayton Tune out of Houston is another one that's getting some buzz. Jaden Daniels from LSU, which I know eventually you and I are going to really talk about him, because he's another guy, man, transferring and looking really good.
He's winning. He's winning. That's the most important thing for a quarterback. He's winning, and he's doing it not necessarily in an unconventional way, but he's showing up in big moments, and he's looking like he's really hitting his stride now at LSU, and that's an exciting guy to keep an eye on.
Definitely. And then there, the guys like Tanner McKee, where, if you feel like you missed out on Davis Mills or Mike Glennon, there you go. There's your other. If you're just yearning for a Davis Mills or Mike Glennon, that's what you're looking for. But there are some really interesting guys in this class, and I think it's a good quarterback class. I know it's just getting that heat that we always get to, where when you're looking at the quarterback class a year out, you're like, oh my gosh, look at all these top guys. And then when you start digging into it, everyone's like, oh, it's an overrated class. Wait until Caleb Williams next year. I think this is a good quarterback class. Like last year's was terrible. Last year's was atrocious. This year's is good. Like I really think there could be 4 or 5 quarterbacks in this class that are better than the top pick last year. Like, no doubt. I'm more intrigued by Bo Nix this year than any of the guys last season.
I think realistically, if we just say who was our 1 through 6, if we win, it was Stroud, Young. These are unofficial rankings, by the way. Stroud, Young, Richardson, Levis, say Nix, Penix, say those guys. I honestly would take any of those guys. In no slight to Kenny Pickett. It would be a conversation to be had about Kenny Pickett being QB6 in this draft class. And so, and more than anything with QBs, I think the team drafting them is more important than what they can do, because we've seen teams ruin quarterbacks. We've seen teams not prepared to have a young quarterback. But the teams drafting QBs is way more important than than how good a player is.
Yep. And we will see if the Colts are going to be one of those draft destinations for these quarterbacks. We don't even know who the GM is going to be during the draft. We don't know who the head coach is going to be. We don't know if they're going to be looking for a quarterback, or, if they sent it all for Jared Goff or something. Who knows? Guys? But it is interesting to look at this quarterback class. And I do think we are past time, for the Colts post Andrew Luck to finally go for a young guy and finally get a young guy in the building. I think this is a good class for it, because even if you miss out on Stroud and Young and Levis, there could be a Richardson or Hendon Hooker or Michael Penix or Bo Nix. Like there are some interesting quarterbacks that I think a good offensive mind can actually do some things with. But that's all we got for today, guys. If you guys want to talk some more quarterbacks with us, we're always available on Twitter at Zach Hicks 2, at Jon Hagler CR. We'll love to talk some quarterbacks. We'll talk all about Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. I mean, we'll talk about that all day, guys. But make sure you subscribe to Locked On Colts there, and follow us. Follow us on all those Twitter things and wherever you listen to the podcast, guys. Again, make sure you are subscribing and getting those notifications. And thank you guys for making us your first listen of the day. For your next listen, check out Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you guys Monday before the game.